Céad míle fáilte over fad ag an ócáid seo an play phainéil ar cuasaí teangain do dhaoine fásta atá ag fille ar an teanga nó ag teacht ar thoras beag leis an teanga. So Céad míle fáilte there. I think some of the people here in the class, or sorry, in the group are new learners. Céad míle fáilte is one we've been using this week. We had a couple of very important classes this week teaching Irish to people who have been born outside of Ireland. And we also had a class through Arabic this week in Irish and so on. So Céad míle fáilte was used a few times in the vicinity of Násnarí. The event is being recorded live, so Matadini Car, or not live, but Tashi Hafid, and it'll be going out on Kildara Legaelga's site and so on. So if people are okay with that would be great. If anyone wants to make a last adjustment, anyone want to make an adjustment to the hair there, Tig, before we start off? You happy, Carter? Okay. So more of it. Extensions. So. In terms of a format for the hour while we're here, we're going to start with the panelists saying a few words about themselves, introducing themselves. Then I'm going to ask a few questions just about their own language journey, and then after that we'll open things to the floor. I think we should treat the event as an opportunity for us all to learn from each other. I think I'm still learning how to teach Irish. I'm still learning how to encourage others to do it, and how to get people feeling it's part of what they own as well. So we'll hopefully all learn a little bit through the course of the next hour. And then we'll close up in about an hour, if that's Carcolor. So we have three guests here today, or three panellists. We have Colleen Dollard. Well, may I get Colleen. So it's Múinteoir Gaeilge Colleen. Colleen's an Irish teacher, teaching adults, and considers herself a lifelong learner. Her adult students are often Irish, but not always Irish. So that will be an interesting part of what we hear this morning, or this afternoon. Siobhan is a Múinteoir Gaeilge. Sorry, she's not a Múinteoir Gaeilge. She's a Múinteoir in a Gael Coláiste, not even teaching Irish, but teaching subjects through Irish, which sometimes is a bit of a shock for people when they think about it. So Siobhan's a Múinteoir Mata, a language activist, and the heart and soul of a lot of what happens in Násnarí. Although, in fairness, Siobhan has empowered so many people to get involved. It's quite a large movement at this stage. She's also a scrivener. She's written 3 children's books as well, something that a lot of people don't even realise about her. And then we have Tig Hickey. So I have a list of things about Tig. This will just take about 20 minutes. Tig's an actor. He's a singer. That's why he's here today, I believe. He's a comedian, an activist, and an author. He came to Násnarí all the way from Cork this morning on the bicycle. So he might be a bit homesick after a while. Cork people have a bit of a name. Well earned. So we'll be gentle with you, Tig, today. Mahan Far. And actually, I'm going to read a little text I got from someone today. I sent a text around about the event. And somebody said it. They didn't make any reference to Siobhan or Colleen. They said, Tig Hickey, and you, be me on. Which translates as, I'll be here. And I won't say who it was because I don't want to embarrass them. No, well, I won't say who it was, but Youssef, great to see you. Okay. So, and then myself, Ismisha Dahi, I'm a Múinteoir Gaeilge just across the street there. I'm not an actor, I'm not a singer, I'm not a dancer, I'm not a comedian, but here I am anyway. I played pitch and putt in Mosney for Monaghan. In 1986, we came 16th out of 20. Gurmila Magov. So, now, that's the first bull of us I got for a long time. So there we go. So at this stage, I'll probably introduce the panellists, or not introduce them, but I'll ask them to say their cúpla focal. I might start, if it's okay, with just hearing about your relationship with the language as a child, if that's okay. Just your first recollections of the language, your feelings about the language, if you had any at all, and then we'll come back to the stuff further on in your life. Yeah. Will we start with you, Colleen? Yeah. Gurmagat. Carcolor.
Hello, everybody. I'm from... Oh, sorry. Oh, wait, babe. Hello. I'm from Washington, D.C. I was born in Washington, D.C., raised in Maryland. My mother was a native speaker. My mother was a native speaker, but she didn't speak Irish to me. I'm the youngest of five students. Not five, the youngest of 5 kids. And when she put her hands on her first grandchild, she said, I think I was about 19 at the age of my first nephew. When she put her hands on her first grandchild, she said, Shohi, shoho, astore, mañana. And I was, at 19, kind of, as you are, you think you've learned everything you possibly could from your parents at 19. And I thought, oh, who are you? I've never met you. And I was interested in languages all along. And then I saw that my mother was a native speaker. I thought, I need to learn this. And the years, when I was about 23, I was studying in France. And I remember I had friends from Norway who said, oh, what a pity. You speak English, you speak Spanish, you speak French. You have no secret language, And I thought, I had the books. My mother gave me the books. My mother was going to Ireland to visit her family, and she asked me what I wanted. And I said I want an Irish language book with cassette tapes so I can hear how it's pronounced. Now, people, this was before the internet. I started learning Irish before the internet, which was nice doing Washington, D.C. And so that's all I needed, something where I could hear the sounds. I felt like I could learn anything if I had the sounds. And she brought me back a book, and the first thing she said is, I didn't buy this when your Uncle Michael bought this for you. I picked it up and I saw the price on it. And I thought, I'm not going to pay this much for a dead language, And she brought it back to me, and I cherished it. I learned everything I could from it, and I joined a group called Dalty na Gaeilge, which still exists. It's Learners of Irish, DALTAI, Dalty.com, and they have great resources available. They had these immersion weekends, and my mother, again, for my mother, Irish was connected to poverty, and she didn't want me to slow myself down with Irish, but as I was living in the US. And so for example, I decided I wanted to go to one of these immersion weekends at Dalty na Gaeilge. And she said, oh, this will be good. It's only Irish and you don't know any Irish. And I said, yeah, that's what the brochure says. She goes, oh, you'll have to keep your mouth shut and listen to somebody else for a change, which will be great, good experience for you. So, but de vera céile, little by little, I learned because of my need to speak and because I found it very, very difficult. I felt like I was the daughter of a native speaker. I speak French, I speak Spanish, I did Latin in school. This is going to be a piece of cake. And I went the whole weekend, melting. I couldn't, none of it stuck in my head. And the people were so nice. The experiences at the events were so enjoyable that I thought, well, sure, I'm going to have a good time, whether I ever learn the language or not. And eventually it just clicked in. And eventually, little by little, it came to me. So I've been teaching classes online, thanks to Salt na Salon and Conor na Gaeilge and places like this. And I've met an awful lot of people, and I've had a great experience. Everything I've done through Irish, I've enjoyed. So sorry, I've hogged the mic there.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Ty Kiki, and my Irish journey from the beginning, I think, was that I felt in school it was a bit of a nuisance. I personally didn't feel that way, but I wasn't also passionately into the language when I was a kid, because it was just another subject that I felt was kind of difficult. I didn't really have a flair for languages, and definitely the way it was taught, I felt... I'm not going to harp on about the way it was taught, because myself and Siobhan have had conversations about this where you can't go through your whole life blaming the education system. But I will say one sentence, the kind of fear. So I was lucky enough to do an Irish class in the last couple of years, and there was an elderly gentleman on the class, and he was quite emotional about the spirit of the Irish class we were doing it, because it was fun and people were having a laugh, and he was like, this language symbolized brutality to me. Like, it was beat into me if I, by people he felt didn't quite understand the language either, So, and I think I got the very, very, very tail end of that, where the teachers I didn't feel were didn't seem to be about love. And for me, later life, I would become very interested in history and anti-imperialism and my own Irish identity. And for some reason in school, I never combined the two things. Whether that was my fault or the way it was taught, Irish was a kind of an intellectual nuisance, like something that just had to be. And in the arguments in secondary school, some people wanted to get rid of it completely. I wasn't in that camp, but I never remember a conversation ever up until 18 or 19 when someone said, either a teacher or a pupil said, geez, this is gorgeous language, isn't it? It's lovely to talk this language. Never. And right up until the end of school, and I have a daughter who's 20 now, and I know that it's, it hasn't changed radically at all. The emphasis was on, can you write the Irish perfectly well so that you get a gold star / A+? Never can you come into a room and have a really good, honest, like loving of language conversation. Never. It was just something to get through. So I felt guilty about not being able to speak Irish for a long time, which again is an old Catholic kind of thing that I need to get rid of. And then I met Siobhan. And I would say Siobhan kindly bullied me into going back to learn Irish. And it's a slow process, but already it's characterized by love. Genuinely, already it's characterized by all the opposite of the way it was taught in the school system for me, or I interpreted it anyway. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Grogan, and I don't bully people. I'd like that to be recorded, please. Keep that in the edited version. Taig actually, just a very quick story. Taig made the mistake of writing on Twitter, as many people do, I should really do something about my Irish. So it's an invitation really to get in contact and say, right Taig, okay, there'll be a phainéil shráide an láile páric in Naas. We'll see you there. In fairness, he was, as I said to him afterwards, low-hanging fruit. He was easy. He was an easy target. So I was brought up in Naas, and I was brought up in an English-speaking house, and I went to an English-speaking school. There was no Gael school, there was no Gael Coláiste in Naas at the time at all, and it didn't even feature as an issue anyway. I know that a small number of people were travelling from Naas to a Gael school in Rathcoole. I didn't know there was a Gael school in Rathcoole. Irish didn't feature in my life at all, except as a school subject. And like Taig mentioned there, I certainly decided I didn't have a flair for languages at all. So it was a subject that I wasn't going to be great at. And that was okay because I was pretty good at other subjects. So it really didn't feature. And then at the end of 5th year, actually, our Irish teacher was telling us you should really go, if you can at all, you should go to the Gaeltacht, go to a summer college, Os Gaeilge. So I did, and a little bit like the Dalty conversation, it was a very strict one, Coláiste Cámas, very strict, full sentence in English, and you were sent home. And I would have been murdered if I had been sent home after all that money being spent. So I stayed quiet for the first few days, but it was more than a weekend, it was 3 weeks. So it was kind of, am I really going to stay quiet for 3 days, or am I going to get on with this? So I got on with it. And while 3 weeks wasn't long enough to sort out my whole Irish, it made me realise actually that I can speak this. In fact, there's an awful lot more back there. I've learnt an awful lot in class over the years that I never actually put together. And I hadn't realised that at all until I was into a situation where I suddenly had to kind of find with through Gaeilge. I had to function through Irish. So anyway, that's fine. I did my leaving cert, left school like many people did, didn't really give it much thought after that. But went abroad a few times on holidays. And there is a sense of, when you go to France, people speak French, and you go to different countries, they speak their language. And I began to feel a sense of regret, maybe a bit of shame, embarrassment, that I couldn't speak Irish. So somewhere en route, I became one of the people who said, I should really do something about my Irish. And I said it to somebody I worked with, a friend. I was teaching an English medium school in Dublin at the time. And he decided he should do something about his Irish as well. So he signed us up actually to a class in Conradh na Gaeilge. And then, this was just a colleague at work. And then he said, well, look, I lived in Naas, I was teaching in Dublin. He said, would you come over to my house for dinner before the class, and I'll cook. So I thought, great. I thought nothing of this. This was just somebody who was going to go to an Irish class with me. Anyway, I didn't realise he had, it is, yeah, absolutely. Right? So, yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah. So we went to our Irish class, and it was great, and I got dinner made for me every week, and I suppose then re-engaged with that, and anyway, at a later stage, we started going out, we got married, we had 3 kids, and he told me after we got married, I wasn't really that interested in Irish, but I knew you were. So I married under false pretenses. But we made a really interesting decision, well, I think it's a really interesting decision, that when we had our first child, we decided we were going to try and speak Irish to this child. Now, our Irish was far from perfect, it really was, but we were interested. And when you have a small baby who can't correct you, can't sort of say, well, now there should have been a shavu in that, and that should have been the tissue, get it up. You get to practice. It's ideal. So you get to practice. So you can say all the stuff and you get used to it, and it becomes, like, I feel the connection with my children is through Irish, which is something that I actually didn't believe I could do or that we could do. And they are now 3 teenagers, and they have all independently told me that they are very happy with the decision that we made. So I can honestly say we came into parenting with very dodgy Irish, and if we can do that, literally anybody can do that.
What I might ask the panel next is just how people have reacted to you, as adult re-engagers or engaged for the first time. How have people reacted to you getting involved in the language? I might start, tied with yourself, you're based in Ireland and so on, you had your friend groups in advance, and the next thing you're getting to Gaeilge again. Have you found the reactions positive, negative, or?
No pushback at all. Like, it's just making my buddy Sully, who I'll be playing music with today, his Irish would be a little bit better than mine. And I found recently when we're rehearsing for something, Oscailga, that we just try to talk to each other in Irish. It's actually breaking that barrier of like, oh, we're trying to talk Irish, like as if it's something kind of like audacious, or I don't know. It's a funny one. I think, like, and we were just even talking before the start of the event, breaking through the barrier of, okay, we're going to talk Irish together here, and it's a safe space, and we can make mistakes. That for me is like where it's all won and lost. But I have to say, no. I mean, I think there's a kind of a great reawakening in Ireland at the moment. And obviously, like, it's hard to talk about anything without talking through the lens of Palestine at the moment. And I think Palestinian understanding and celebration of its own culture as well is so keen. And when you're around Palestinians, you really get it. That, to touch on what Siobhan said earlier, I was like, it made me accelerate my Irish journey a little bit, being around Palestinians, because you feel like you want to have that understanding and appreciation of everything to do with your culture as well, in the way that they do, you know. It's the thing that defines them, I think, and why they're so, partly why they're so resilient. But no, anyone in my life just feels like it's about time, that it's something that I probably always should have been on top of, you know. So yeah.
Cormac agus tá Mohammed Cursus to love. So we have to Mohammed and Shah own Palestine fresh and Tashesh and Leir again town. We might have Mohammed say a couple of fucking in a little while, not just yet, Mohammed. Yeah, just about his own journey with the language of the last 4 months since he got out of Gaza. So I'm rocking with Huggett to Siobhan Bader and Nish, come the couple of fucking around.
Yeah, I think initially, I think probably my friends just decided it was just kind of a hobby maybe, or something that I was going to do. I mean, there was no pushback or anything like that at all. But I presumed they figured, yeah, sure, that's lovely that you'll have the cúpla focal. And I think there is definitely a distinction between, sure, it's lovely that you have the bit of Irish, and actually trying to live your life through Irish. Like, it is two different things. So I don't think, well, in fairness, I didn't quite believe that we could live our lives through Irish. So why would anybody else think the same thing? Like, it was interesting when I had, so my first child, who's now 19, but when she was in a pram, a friend's mother saw me talking Irish to her. So she was probably only a few months old. And she, this lovely woman now, lovely woman, and she said to me, "Are you not worried though that she won't be able to speak English?" And I said, "No, she'll have English. So, like, you can't be brought up in Ireland and not speak English." But that was her. It was almost like you have room in your brain for one language, and you've picked Irish. So people sometimes have a misunderstanding maybe. So no, there was certainly nothing negative, and lots of positive. Like, lots of positive. Like, I've met at pub in the Gaeilge. Like, I've made friends, lifelong friends that I would never have met. So my experience has been very, very positive from other people. Yeah.
Well, like the rest of you, it's been very positive for me as well. Again, my mother said, I came back from my very first class in Irish, and I had this 16-year-old face. I was about 23, but the first physical class that I did near me, I had to drive a long way to get to it. And my mother had called the teacher, who was the head of Conradh na Gaeilge in Washington, D.C., and she'd called him up and said, "I forbid my daughter to attend this class." Right? And I showed up at the guy's door, and I had this 16-year-old face, and the guy was, well, your mother, and I said, "Fog and bollock, like, I've paid you've cashed my check, let me in." And so because of this, I went right back to my mother, because to me it was I needed to push that button, like, why is she upset about this? And I said to my mother, "Conas atatu, Mom." I was so I had done Spanish, and conas atatu made me feel like, it just sounded more like a language I already knew. It was new to me. And she said, "Oh, what's the matter with you? Haven't you heard Cehultu all your life? If you're going to learn it, would you not learn the right dialect, So that was the only little bit there. And occasionally people will ask you, "Céin Fá." I love the Céin Fá. What the Fá? Why? What's the reason for you learning Irish? And I said, I've got French. And nobody asks me why I speak French. I have not a bit of full Francoch in me, Like, nobody asks you why you're learning French, why you're learning Spanish, why you're learning German, And then the other thing I wanted to say is I spent a year working at Forest na Gaeilge in the Rannog Publics Kno, and people would call up on these community schemes looking to get, there was great funding available for community groups and businesses, and people would say, oh, you know, like they would be in the most exquisitely perfect Irish telling me that they couldn't speak any Irish, and I'd go, no problem, I've got English. And then they'd say, are you from the States? And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, oh, well, I can speak Irish to you. You know, all of a sudden, somehow I gave off an aura as I'm not going to be nitpicking about whether you've got it perfect, you know. So anyway, that was my experience with it. So.
Actually, the next question I had written down was, we're getting wee gags from everyone. I was going to ask you wee funny stories about the language. And you made reference there to being in the States and so on, and your secret languages. Two of our former students, myself and Siobhan, have hundreds of students have gone through it now, but two of our former students were over in the States. Sorry, one was a former student, one had gone to another school and they lived in Dublin. But the two boys were on a bus, and the bus was full of people in Boston from all the different nationalities in the world. Two boys were living there, and they were hearing, oh God, these people are speaking, some are speaking Spanish and some are speaking whatever different languages you would hear. And the two boys were here, oh God, I wish we had a language we could speak. Because they had gone through a Gael philosophy, but it doesn't always translate to speaking Irish at home, depending on the family. And the two boys realised, oh my God, we have Irish and we haven't been using it. And they've changed then, and they haven't spoken English to each other since. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, that's Johnny Yogus Andre her. Yeah. So that's that one. So I will ask all the same if there are any more wee funny anecdotes, because I think they're the things that kind of, I would just say, remind us that this can be fun. Do you know? Have you come across?
It's not all that funny, it's just real life. I came down here last year and I had a bit of a set together and I was kind of short on time. So I said to Siobhan, I might just do one song in English, like, would that be alright? Because the lyrics are about kind of colonialism and stuff like that. So, and Siobhan went, no. in her beautifully gentle, assertive way, she's like, no. but there is a point in there, and I was thinking to myself, like, of course not, like, you're coming down to do your one Irish gig of the year, buddy, like, do a bit of Irish, you know. And I was like, and it was just moving away from like what you were touching on, to instead of it being a kind of a hobby horse stroke novelty kind of thing, to make it really part of your life, you know. Would you'd give it the time to do a full set and not cobble together a bare cassette like for your big day out, you know. So I just thought I'd share that.
I'm kind of afraid to say anything, to be fair.
After this, we might just put Colleen between Siobhan and Harry there.
I do remember when, like as I said, when we started, speaking Irish to our kids, our Irish was patchy. It was patchy. But we had confidence when we were speaking to a child. But when an adult spoke Irish to me initially, like I froze. Now, I was speaking Irish at home to my baby, but when a real life adult spoke, I froze. And that happened to me regularly. But we were in the Lift in Whitewater shopping centre in Newbridge one day, and myself, my husband and my young child, and we were chatting away in Irish. And the next thing is a lady in the lift started speaking to us in a language that we didn't recognise. And I thought, why does she think we would know that language? And I couldn't figure out. I don't have lots of languages like some of the people in the room, but you know, I had decided it was an Eastern European language. Don't ask me based on what. I thought the sound of it was Eastern European. As the woman was leaving the lift, I realised she was speaking Irish. She was speaking Irish in a dialect at the time that I wasn't particularly familiar with, and I remember being mortified. Of course she thought we could understand her because we were speaking Irish to our child. She recognised, but we were still at such a stage in our learning journey that while we were speaking Irish to our child, we hadn't got, you know, we were still very early in the journey. So that I was mortified. I don't know if it's a funny story or an embarrassing story, but I was mortified. Yeah.
I think it's an important one. I might even actually go down that road with some of the next question, the idea of what are the things that, like I find that if I try to speak a language when I go abroad, I have a French from school and I try to speak French when I go abroad to the relevant country. But I notice when I get to the word I haven't got, my confidence just drops, like it drops right through the floor. So have you had stories like that, or even in terms of getting people in this room to kind of consider using more and more Gaelic? How to get over those kind of speed bumps or those kind of challenges, confidence challenges?
What I like to mention is the little space between your eyes here when you're speaking to Irish to someone, even if you're quite fluent, the person looking at you just creases their forehead like this, and it's almost like the ballast on a hot air balloon or something. You know, you just feel like your confidence going, you know, like, and I just feel that quite often I think there are people in Ireland. I like to say that people in Ireland are regionally chauvinistic, and I mean chauvinistic as in chauvin in French. You know, like loyal to your own area. You know, it goes way, way back in history, probably. You know, like I'm from the US and I'm from Washington, D.C., and you can be from Washington, D.C. and support the Dallas Cowboys. It doesn't matter. Whereas in Ireland, you know, you can't possibly be from Kildare and not support the Kildare team unless Kildare's playing, you know, your mother's from some other, you know, like you have to be for your area. So what I like to tell people that are learning is like, you're going to say it, you're going to learn this, and inevitably you're going to find somebody who's going to go, no, that's not the way. Like my mother saying, haven't you heard Cehi Wiltu since you were a child, right? You know, I maybe heard her speak Irish 5 times in my life that I remembered, you know. So people will assume you're saying it wrong if you don't say it this way, you don't say it that way. And I teach everybody to learn, like, oh, Marchionnet. I teach everybody to say, oh, Marchionnet. And like, oh, really? Is that so? You tell me the way you say it. You know, like to accept that and don't take it as an insult, as, you know, like, Gillian. And don't say it, you know, don't take it personally if somebody says you're saying it the wrong way. Because it's just, there's whole different ways, and people were... I think, you know, a lot of people had one teacher one term and another teacher the next term, and they got frustrated with that. But I think always, like strength and togetherness. So all of the dialects, all of the different versions are great, you know.
If you're ready, Siobhan.
I wasn't ready. I was going to make a general philosophical point, actually, which is it's just really nice to go and do something that you've always wanted to do. It's actually really nice to just go and do that. You know, like on a very basic level, like I'm in recovery from alcoholism and I'm very open about that. So I'm quite a late developer with a lot of things that I wanted to do. Like I used to be sitting on bar stools and in parties going, I'd love to learn Irish again. I'd love to swim. I'd love to drive a car, like real basic stuff. And one by one I'd say doing the Irish, but I can drive, I can swim, and
I'll put that then for the CV the next
No, you don't have to be an alcoholic, but I think a lot of people will identify with like the idea. I mean, it's very common in Ireland of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and just not getting round to it. To get round to stuff is a really beautiful experience. So if I was to share it now, I am at the beginning of my journey, but already it's been extremely rewarding. It's beautiful. And I'd say to people, if you're in the room and you're starting or you're half starting or whatever, just getting going with it and making progress and feeling I'm doing the thing I've been talking about doing my whole life is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Too small and a hibra from Carthage. I don't even think I'm answering a question, but I'm going to tell a bit of a story here anyway, because I can't remember really what the question was, to be fair. Exactly. I have a brother who lives in Colorado, and we came home from England. So actually, when I grew up in Naas, I was born in England. I was 5 when we came home, so I went through the school system here. But I have older siblings, and there is a rule in Ireland that if you come into the country and you're over the age of 11, you can get an exemption from Irish. So my two eldest siblings had an exemption from Irish. So my brother came to Ireland when he was 11, then moved to the States when he was 21, never did Irish. And then he came home visiting. And when we had our kids, he stayed with us. So he heard us speaking Irish to our children. And I think then he felt a pang about, that he could see the interaction, he could see the fun, but he couldn't participate. So in Colorado, about 7 or 8 years ago, he decided that he was going to learn Irish. So he started on Duolingo, and he made that commitment. He decided, I am going to do this. So he did it. So 10 minutes a day, and then that wasn't enough. So he started finding different resources. And then we were going over to visit, the first time that we'd ever gone over as a family to Colorado. And I said to him, we should organise a pop-up Gaeltacht. And he said, but I don't know anybody here who speaks Irish. And I said, well, there's 5 of us. There was myself, my husband, and our 3 children. And you, that's 6. That's a crowd. So I said, if nobody else comes, the 6 of us can speak Irish. But we made a poster and he sent it to anybody that he knew that might have some remote connection to Ireland or Irishness or an interest. And he sent it out to the local GAA club or whatever, and 20 people came. Some of them with fluent Irish, some of them with some Irish, and a few people who came because they were curious. And I said to him, make sure you get contact details, because this is your pobble, this is your community. And when you're learning something new, to have a community makes the journey so much more enjoyable. Now, a community can be 2 people. It's lower birth. So if you have another person to speak to, like that, that's fine. And if you get a third or a fourth, sure, that's better again. So he got he gathered up the contact information, and once a month they came together and they had their pop-up Gaeltachts, and then COVID hit. So they went online, which meant that we could now go back on and meet some of the people that we had met in Colorado. So their pobble stayed together, and now obviously because there's no lockdowns or that kind of thing, they still meet up occasionally. But I think if you can find one person who will speak Irish to you, and that you can, your safe space, that you can make your mistakes, whether it's your partner at home if you're trying to raise your child through Irish, or whether it's a friend, or whether it's a random stranger that you meet at a Kirkle Cora, is Bert. Definitely. Like if he can do it in Colorado. Like he was too old apparently at 11 to learn Irish, but at 50 he wasn't too old. Something quite strange about that. But if you want to do it, just decide, because what are you waiting for? Like when will be a better time than now? There will be no better time, because there's always a reason not to do something now, because we're all too busy. So if it's actually important, just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, super. Okay. Yeah, Leamus Jack Colleen, certainly. Yeah. That's just the questions and answers shortly. Yeah.
I was in like I say, in Maryland, and there was a new Irish pub opening up near me, and I made a placemat just from a plain A4 piece of paper. I drew plate, a fork, a knife, a spoon, and I wrote all these phrases like could you please pass the salt, and on the plate, in the middle of the plate, I wrote an Gaeilge agat, and I wrote, do you have Irish? And I wrote all kinds of little phrases that were helpful for the table talk, right? Yes. And on the bottom, I just said, if you'd like more information about learning Irish, please contact, and I had my email address on it. And I approached the new pub and said, have you organized placemats yet? And I said, because I'll buy them for you. It was Conor na Gaeilge, Washington. We bought them for them. Yeah. They were thrilled. And I met a woman. I lived 2 blocks walking distance from this pub, and there was a woman who lived 2 blocks the other side of the pub, and we're still friends. That was 30 years ago. So there's lots of things you can do. This group that I was talking about before, Dalty na Gaeilge, it's dalty.com. They have a international. They just if you click on classes, they have a list of all the classes. You can put your own class. You can put where you are. And whenever I get someone who says, "Oh, there's nobody in my area," I like, it's like the build it and they will come. Write down, I'm in this place, and I have a Kirkle Cora. I have a conversation circle, and people will come. Even if you're only just starting, people will come. And it's a good way to join that, so.
Colleen. So folks, and I'm just going to mention to the panelists, I'll probably go to the floor now and get people to ask a question or give a contribution, either a question or if you wanted to talk a little bit about your own journey, be it a lifelong one or something that's in its infancy. And before we finish up, I might ask the panelists just to have a thought or two in terms of resources that might be useful for people, but I won't ask that question now, but you can have it in your minds. So I'm going to open things up to the Urlar, to the floor there. If there's anyone who's open to asking a wee question, stick up the love there. Yeah, Nicola, Sfela Tossu. Yeah.
I'm doing Duolingo. I'm on Friday to 85 days straight, but I'm not speaking anywhere else other than the Cúpla fucking speaks. But I'm very similar to South Siobhan. I came home with dying, and I made that I could learn Irish, but this is the basics. So it is something I'm really, I've tried it over the years. I have 2 sons, I call them Rory and Ty. So I was interested. They're again Gory. I met Ty actually for last March we're at. But so they're again Gory, and that's 2 of the fluent. So it's something that I will go to definitely after this today. Now.
Yeah, super great.
Something.
Yeah, and I would say myself and Nicola and quite a number of people in the room here are doing kind of some stuff for Palestine solidarity stuff. And I don't know whether you'd all agree, but there's so much Gaeilge in that group. There's such an openness and a massive change in the last maybe 10, 15 years. I noticed a massive change in Naas in terms of the prevalence and the normality of the language at this stage. A marked difference since when I arrived 17 years ago, but also just in Irish society generally. generally, and in that particular group, there's a load of Gaeilge being spoken. It's just become normal. And I wrote down when there were a couple of proverbs or Shanachal being thrown around there. As far Gaeilge Vrishta na Berle Clishta, broken Irish is better than fluent English, so that we use what we have, and then when we run out we change, or we throw in the cúpla focal or the few words in an English medium conversation with, and so on. And I think that's a great way to go forward. But the positivity, I think, is immense at the moment. So Ein Keshtela Gurmagat Nicola for that contribution. Youssef, Lemus Jack.
Just what you said about the Palestine group there, just remind me kind of that was a great way to get back into it for myself. Like, I didn't do Irish since I did it in Leaving Cert, and I was very fortunate to have a very good Irish teacher, and I went to a summer Irish college and I ended up working there as well. But after Leaving Cert, I did engineering, kind of went to a separate route, so I never got to do it again. But that Palestine group really, showed me how many other people are in the same boat that are willing and able to do it. Yeah. But for myself, it was so interesting. Kind of, Siobhan, you kind of touched on it. I think you said, oh, I already have my language. I there's no room for another one. Like, when I was small, when my parents moved to Ireland, they only spoke to me in Arabic, so I had barely any English. Then I went to primary school, and my English was like quite weak. But when we started in Irish and had a fresh start, I excelled in it. And teachers went, look, we're delighted and all that. It's great in Irish, but you can barely speak English still. But like, it's special to see. I never thought 5 years from the last time I speak Irish that other people around them feel the same, and I want to go back to it because it's something I've always wanted to do.
Ella, Ein Keshtela, Jen, yeah, Lana, right, Jen?
So I wrote my so you've this word type. You mentioned earlier that you're interested in anti-imperial wars and the beauty of Irish, of Irish language. So I'm from Mexico, so I don't necessarily have direct links to the language. But I started classes recently, and one of the things that I am most interested about is that link between anti-imperialist work as work to recover beauty, and without this rescue ways of seeing the world through language, and how colonialism, the ways of seeing the world that colonialism constantly tries to erase. So the question is, if you think of Irish as a way of thinking or perceiving the world, and the beauty of that, what would be the most important thing to rescue and preserve through knowledge?
Wow, yeah, that's a big question. I suppose excuse me. Yeah, it's I'm not sure if this will directly answer it, but I suppose I noticed a gap in my study of anti-imperialism. So, and I say study loosely, I'm not an academic, but I'm a satirist, and all my kind of work is in around that area. And I would be traditionally voting for parties and involved in movements that would seek Irish unity. And I'd be very loud and vocal about that, but I wouldn't be conveying any of my messaging in my own mother tongue, because I would be nervous about it. And like Siobhan said, probably a good bit of it is in there, but I would felt that nervousness about expressing it. So I felt in my reading and talking to Gaeilgeoirs, particularly in the north, some of them would have the perception that a decolonising project for the individual or a community should be done through the mother tongue. That's why most nationalists in the north, I think, would have like very, very good Irish. They have a different relationship to it, to us down south, completely. So I kind of felt like if I'm going to really position myself, and not just for others, not just for optics, but for myself as well, if I'm going to put myself out there as somebody who's interested in anti-imperialism and tries to agitate for it through my work, I need to be able to understand my mother tongue and do that through my mother tongue. So I feel like it's, if the language isn't one of the key things that's being reclaimed, that there's something completely missing in the whole process, I think. And again, I'm probably repeating myself now, but to see other nations in their decolonising process, and it's always their language is a big part of it, because the language was taken away from us, and to move beyond a kind of an anger about it. I think that sometimes when people say decolonise, it's about like, it's a little bit like, the Brits, but like, but my perception, that would be a bit like, that happened, and it can now be another thing that we kind of complain about, like the school system and the oppression of religion in the country and stuff. These things have happened, and now we're here and we're building a modern Ireland, hopefully, that I would hope will be reunified in the not too distant future. So it's up to us now to reclaim all those things that we want to do, again, through love, and the language has to be front and centre of that process. So, yeah, thank you.
Just two things is like also when you think about the structure of the language, English is a very I-centered. I mean, what other language capitalizes the I? Nothing, no other language does. I am thirsty. I am lonely. Whereas Irish is Tawugnas orm, Tatart orm. Hunger is on me. Loneliness is on me. Thirst is on me. So it's not an I-centered language. So much about Irish explains the way people are in Ireland. And I think I noticed that more coming. You know, like when you say things like, oh, vi in Baelish in Gohalin, the meal was beautiful. People will say so many things that you say, oh, it's just the day that's in it. There's so many things that are said here in the Irish spoken in Ireland that are beautiful. I mean, every little phrase in Irish is a poet, is a piece of poetry. And, you know, English is lovely. There's nothing wrong with English, but Irish has so much more depth to it. You know, and yeah, and I've got a list of why. I think 22 people responded from my beginner classes online as to why they're learning Irish. And
go for a couple of them there. We have 10 minutes.
Well, just really quickly, I just of 75 of them, I just texted them last night, and they sent me back on this WhatsApp poll. 4 people said, I didn't get the chance to learn it well in school. This is what, as the question was, what made you, I should have put the glasses on, what made you start Irish classes or come back to them as an adult was the question, okay? And so 4 people answered, I didn't get the chance to learn it well in school. 4 people said, I didn't have Irish classes growing up. 12 said, I want to help my children learn Irish. 5, I like the way Irish sounds. 2, I want to be able to speak Irish for work purposes. 5, I'm retired and or have more time to spend on Irish than I did before. 4, I think as someone born outside of Ireland, learning Irish shows respect for the country. 7, learning helps us understand the culture of Ireland better. 7, Irish language goes deeper than English. And 4 has other, and they all wrote different things. Like, you know, they did it in school, and they wish they could come back. You know, so anyway.
That's super stuff, yeah. Well, Kesh no Einrad le Rá, not just a question necessarily, but if anyone has anything they want to say. Mohammed, would you like to say your little word or two? Mohammed is he taught at class through Arabic only last 2 nights ago in the Gael College across the road. We had people from 6 different nationalities there, and the whole class was run through Arabic, and they were learning Irish phrases that Mohammed has picked up from ourselves here in Ireland in the last 4 months since he came. Do you want to say hello? Gee, good, Mohammed?
Yes, more of it.
Can I say talk to? Go ahead, took our fad. Now. He's also a singer, but we won't ask you to sing over Rosh Hashanah. Would you like, Mohammed? Would you like to tell about what you've observed so far?
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want the mic? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, certainly. Yeah. No.
What's this?
Okay, all right.
Hello everyone, it's Mishi Muhammad. I am from Palestine, from Gaza, and as you know, there is a big genocide now in Gaza. And I left Gaza before 3 months, and I lost my sister and more than 100 of my cousins and my family. It's a big, horrible. You cannot imagine what happened there. So I know what is the true value when anyone forced you to do something you don't need to do. Anyone want to steal your life. Anyone want to remove your culture. Anyone want to remove your language. I know what is the true value for this. So I decided when I arrived here, I decided to learn Irish because Ireland and Palestine live the same history, same different occupation, but the same history. Second, when I arrived here, I met a lovely group. They stood with us. They gave us a big love. They supported us. I love them, and they love us. So because I love them, I want to learn their language. I love the Irish people. Thank you to every people here, and thank you to everyone. Finally, I would like to thank this man because he taught me Irish language, and thank you, Dahi.
I don't understand English.
Go just pull a lot.
Okay, Gurmila Magan Mahavan Mahanfar. We had good fun yesterday, and Mohammed is staying in my house, and his brother-in-law and 2 children, and we were speaking Irish a little bit yesterday, and Jen there was cooking a meal with Khaled, who's also from Palestine, and Mohammed has been using a little bit of Gaeilge, and Jen has started a few months after Mohammed, and Mohammed thought he was the only one who could speak Irish. So when I said to Jen, Mohammed, speak Irish to Jen there. So Gia Smurditch, and so on. And then we went into the numbers. And when Mohammed realised that Jen could count all the way to 10 and he can go to get to 5, he was so upset. So there'll be an Irish class on the way back to Sallynoggin tonight. Now, Honig may love one, and I'm probably just going to keep an eye on the time. We've 6 minutes left. Would you have to speak there? Yeah.
Taresh, Job's still green. Tom Ash, Paul Baker. So I go every Tuesday night to Monaghan Gaeilge and the Monreid Community Centre. I find them very good. They have the beginners class and community class, you know. So I'm back doing it 9 months now. It's Harry Tanham, Osman, and Mom, Doc Derdine. So show the scale of the oak.
Lovely stuff, yeah. Isn't it a fantastic sense of freedom? It's, I don't know, I always feel myself a wee bit happier when I'm speaking Irish, or if I'm last week I had to speak at some bit of an event, and I had to speech, most of it was in English, and then I stuck in some Gaeilge, and I find myself just more at peace with myself when I'm using a bit of Gaeilge. That's just my own, it's a wee trick I picked up years ago, and I was surprised when I realised that I'm actually just feeling more calm. I could have 100 people in front of me, and when I'm speaking English I'm a wee bit nervous, and then when I learn Gaeilge it's like, you know. So there. Yusuf, yeah, Liam's Jack.
Just when Harry touched on it there, on the mention about the understanding the culture loss that occurs in the drug occupation. One thing I really appreciate from Ireland and from Irish people is I don't think people understand. For us, say my family came from Leeds, and saying that like some family came from Palestine, it was Ireland. It was the first nation in 1916 to resist occupation, even though it was beside England. It was within, air raid distance. The island could be reached in hours if Britain wanted to. Like my parents even told me, like they knew the struggle that Ireland went through to get independence. Like the same time in Ireland in 1916, in Egypt there was maybe 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers controlling 40 million Egyptians who did not even think of starting an uprising or anything like that. But I think we need to hammer that point that, and get that solidarity from other previously occupied countries that, this is the country that started that mentality. That even in terms of outfits and stuff like that, the Egyptians would have had traditional clothing before and stuff, but when the English came, they changed to wearing suits and shirts. And same in Ireland, they kept the paddy hat. But like I suppose the struggle that Ireland went through wasn't just for Ireland, it was for all.
Yes. Okay, Corda. Now, so we've a couple of minutes left. I suggested I come back and ask the panellists about, I don't know if that's the most important message as we finish, but if anyone has closing remarks, be it resources that might be useful, or any just general closing remarks. Sorry to close the floor for questions. Oh, do you want to hop in?
Just detail why, to see the Irish spoken on the big screen,
Oh, indeed.
Cillian Murphy,
True,
yeah.
very true. Yeah, Cillian Murphy, wasn't it? Yes, yeah. Gurmagat, yeah, fair play. Yeah, Gurmagat. Okay, Colleen.
It kind for Cillian Murphy. There is a little 20-minute film called Fillin and Fial. Like the bad deed returns to the evildoer. Fillin and Fowler. It's, if you want to see vintage Cillian Murphy, what is he, maybe 18 or 19 in it? It's a free movie on YouTube. Just look up Cillian Murphy, Fillin and Fial. And just about resources, if people don't know already about them, you can if you put a note on the list, I will be happy to send a list out to people. But some of them are teg.ie, which is a Targa Kildara. It's Maynooth.
Yes.
Okay, it's Maynooth University. They have Tastis Orapach na Gaeilge, the European Language Certificate, tag.ie, full of, look under language resources. Beautiful sound files, video files, all kinds of things. And there's also this Irish ILR web, the Irish Language Requirement Web. It's made for people studying to be teachers, but it's very good for people who are coming from ground zero into Irish, because it's got very basic stuff and it's got videos and stuff, not videos, but audio and files. I'm a big fan of Dalty.com. They've got a lot of grammar explanations there. And there's this, believe it or not, Conor na Gaeilge in Dallas, Fort Worth has the whole book of Irish on Your Own, Now You're Talking. A whole video, and it's a Donegal sound to it, but it's beautiful videos and all kinds of great stuff. Lastly, on YouTube, Learn Irish with Liam O'Moynlig. The videos are free and all of the texts are there, and you can do an awful lot with that. So those are my quick tips.
Okay.
Just to say to you, Kildare Le Gaeilge have a website. It's kildarelegaeilge.ie. And there are a list of language resources on that. I'm not sure that everything you named is on that, so we might have a chat later to see about adding it. At the door, there's a sign-in sheet. So if you are interested in getting the newsletter every month, you possibly were going to say that at the end. I forgot that. You can sign up to that as well, and it'll give you a link. What I found really useful when I was starting out were children's books, because they're basic. They're basic stories. You're not discussing the economic situation in Cuba. It's basic stuff. And particularly if you have a little bit of a basis there, there's pictures to help, all of which I found really, really useful. And watching T.G. Cahir, because say if you watch the Nuacht, you've probably heard it in English or in another language already. So you kind of have an idea of the stories. And often some of the same vocab comes up. But there's a children's channel. T.G. Cahir now have Coola Cahir. So again, because the storyline isn't going to be too complex, I just found children's TV and children's books really, really good. I think the most important thing for me was to find my pobble, find my community. So like there are loads of ways for anybody who lives around here. Like in Naas alone, there are 3 Kirkle Cora every single week in Naas. So on a Monday, it's in the Laurelin, in the library, and these are all free. On a Wednesday, it's in Insomnia in a cafe. Now you probably will have to buy a cup of tea if you're there. And every Saturday morning, and this one has been going for years and years, in Aroma Mocha, there's a brickfast as Gaeilge. That is how I found my pobble. I went to, when my eldest child started in the Gael Skull, there was an information night or whatever for parents, and one parent stood up and she said, by the way, if anybody's interested, there's a brickfast as Gaeilge in Aroma Mocha every Saturday morning. And I went in. I didn't know anybody that was in there, and I went in and they were very welcoming. So you can go on your own. You don't have to have anybody else. You can go. Everybody knows why you're there, so they'll just chat away. The only thing probably you will have in common with them is you want to speak Irish. So I found my pobble, and that pobble has grown significantly because Sultan Solon and Kildare Le Gaeilge, there's a whole team of people behind there, and our whole entire raison d'etre is to provide opportunities for people to use their Gaeilge.
Super, Gurmagach Siobhan, yeah, fair play. Tá wrong on the Laurelin. The wrong on the Gaeilge Erlina Laurelin freshen. Okay, Gurmagach.
Yeah, so wrong there's in-person classes and there's wrong on Erlina. So
early Tigam,
yeah, so online classes.
Okay,
so there are loads of opportunities, but all of that information will be available on kildarelegaeilge.ie, because I know a lot of people are throwing information now, so it can be hard.
Okay, now there's a bit of information, and most of it is actually gone at this stage. My last little bit or two, the words of wisdom are only to go to the Cayley later on. There's a Féile Shráide, or a street festival, and then the Cayley is on at 4:30. So I think the street Féile Shráide is a Gadoa Clug, and 5 different stations around the town, and then at the Cayley more at 4:30. Actually, words of wisdom. You're on camera. Anyone who's not there, Siobhan will spot it, and she'll hunt you down. Your names and addresses will be at the back of the room. All right. So, folks, go to Mila. Céad Míle Buíochas Libh ar fad as bheith an seoling agus feicim Sivigan. Oh, sorry. And of course the headline event
came from Cork.
The headline event.
It's not easy.
See, we told you he was funny. He gets even better as the day goes by. So what can Tom take for yourself?
I don't know. It's quarter to 3 or something in the morning.
Oh yeah, okay. no big deal. I'm not excited. You better be funny now.
There'll be no English songs anyway, I'll tell you that.
And Mohammed might sing O Roshi the Vahawali if we get lucky in a while. All right? On okay. Sinead folks, go to